Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys. Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of Safe Space with Cheyenne. Thank you for tuning back in. And, well, where to begin? Today we have Anja Simmons. She is not only a yogi parenting coach, she's also the author of Parent from This Place. And we're gonna just really talk about her story, how she got into the passion of this. I'm sure that we'll reference meditation, chakras, the evolution and understanding all of these spiritual practices. Maybe we could highlight the yamas and the niyamas. You never really know where it's gonna go. So I definitely try to give it a description up front so you guys know what we would like to hit on besides all of our tree branching stories. But Anja's come on today to share her story and definitely share how she's helping the youth and helping you be the mom that you want to be. So Anja, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I'm excited to soak up all your knowledge.
Ooh, I hope I have some.
Yes. So let's see. So many questions and they try to come out of my mouth at one time. Currently, let's talk about what you're doing. Like before this, you just taught a yoga class. So what type of yoga are you certified in and what have you fused together for your own programs?
Beautiful, beautiful question. So my yoga journey began where I was really trying a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I realized as time went on, it wasn't really connecting with me. It was a physical movement class. And that led me in the end to Kripalu yoga, it's called. And that to me was what represents yoga in the big scheme of things. It was really about meditation in motion, compassionate self-acceptance, the idea that anybody could do yoga, don't have to be blonde and tall and skinny, you know. And that was the one that really made the big aha difference in the way I had the practice at the beginning. So that's what I got certified in after quite some time. And then in teaching, I teach yoga online and in person and private classes and stuff. But it's kind of a mix of everything, right? It's a mix of life even. Like if we're in a pose or we're moving in a particular way, maybe a thought or a mantra or just even, hey, I am strong. Something as simple as that can come out and say warrior two or whatever shape we're in. And so it's an infusion of me, I guess, right? So the Kripalu definitely gave me the big awareness of poses, of the knowledge behind a lot of the philosophy in yoga. All of those kind of topics got included. And now I really stuck to Kripalu for a long time. And now I realize that it really is, which I think for most teachers, an embodiment of whatever we're going through right now, right? If I'm having a really tough time, suddenly my class is all about forward bends and letting go. And if I'm feeling expansive, everything is about heart opening and, you know, arms wide kind of thing. So yeah, it's me on my mat trying to be the best guide for you to find that on your mat.
I still like that you honor yourself though in the practice. I know when I first heard of, I've heard of yoga and even like Pilates, right? The way that it's sold in America, very aesthetic, just like you said, like the blonde and the yoga pants and all that stuff. So, I had no idea about the origin of it for a long time. And then when it came into my life in 2013, it was still very like aesthetic. But when I came into it, I was like, I thought you had to like be a gymnast in a prior life and like the idea that my body could actually stretch, like my mind really had a lot of blocks about it. And I tried I was honestly just fascinated with the downward dog, like straight up, because it looks easy, right? Like you just bend the way that you do. You're like, oh,
You
anybody
think
can
your
do
hands
that.
and feet are on the ground, big whoop. Yeah.
Yep. And then when you try to do it, one, you realize, whoa, can I even bend down all the way to the ground? Two, oh, wow, my hamstrings are really tight. Oh my gosh, what is that feeling right there pulling? And even like with the hand placements, you know, whether you're here, whether you're here. That is probably my favorite thing about what I found out about yoga, besides the origin of it and just the amount of respect you have to have for other people's culture and other people's religion, which honestly has been taken out of a lot of American practices. So I do love people that obviously do anything with yoga, but when you can add that breath work and that spiritual piece and understand, like, yoga literally means like to yoke one with the divine. So you need, and I remember struggling in the middle of it because I was only taught so aesthetically. I wasn't taught why I had to breathe a certain way, the inhales and the exhales, and what it's doing for parts of your body, and to be able to hold longer. And I think a lot of those key components are missing, which is why when people go into it or try it, because they see these fascinating results for all these other people, but and for themselves, they're just not educated enough on why you do this pose this way, why you hold it, why you breathe this way, and what it actually means on a spiritual level. So your practice, I love talking about, especially all the back education you have, but you honor the culture with what you're teaching people. And you teach children. Kids need yoga. I absolutely love
Good for a long, long time. Yeah. Youth, like little ones, pregnancy, like from day one kind of thing, all the way up to teens and preteens. Yeah.
So you've just always had a passion for helping youth in that instance, and then obviously helping their parents because they're going to influence their kids. Absolutely.
And it really is the journey of off the mat stuff, right? So on the mat is your practice. And then off the mat, how do you integrate this into everyday life? Right? It's you know, hopefully with your teacher or whatever, when you're on the mat, you reach this feeling of peace somewhere along the line, and maybe it takes months and years, but you know, that's kind of part of the goal. But can you cultivate that still in everyday life when things are not going great and when things are going great, right? Can you be present for it, right?
Well, I love that you bring that up, because that is definitely, it was one of the beginner struggles I had, and it was the reason. So sometimes it's the reason I don't want to get off the mat, and then sometimes I'll take a break for a while, right? I'll just go away from it even though I don't want to, and then I'm scared to get back on the mat, almost just like if you take a meditation break and you're like, I know it's good for me, I know I have to go back to it, but it's almost like that peace and tranquility that I feel is addictive in the time, and I still have struggled with the integration of carrying that peace out into those normal everyday things in life. Like, I could get off the mat and then, you know, go get rear-ended up the street. Like, am I really going to be able to transfer that compassionate and all-understanding energy that I've just cultivated in a 45-minute meditation / breathwork / let's stretch this part of my body? So for people like me, what are your tips and tricks to be able to integrate your practices in your everyday life?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because to me, ultimately, that's where yoga can serve us, right? That's where it can change things, and that whole idea of parenting differently, parent from this place. And I think the biggest gift is whatever's happening, like let's take the rear end thing, right? And I have to be honest, like I am definitely imperfect. So I would do meditation, breath work, and then go down and deal with my kids. And in 5 seconds, I'm screaming at everybody, right? So it's not like I come in and be like, oh, let's all, and I don't live in a cave, right? I have bills, I have kids, I have things, you know, like how do we deal with that? And the biggest gift I think that yoga has given me, and that is this ability, and we all have it, to find this present moment. Because when you find the present moment, and that includes your whole body and your breath, and it can take a second, right? You don't have to like really go crazy. When you can get there, you realize you have a choice on how you respond. You realize you can often see the picture a little clearer, than an emotion, right? A kid annoying you and you're like, wah, until you go, whoa, actually, let me look at this a little differently. If I'm in the present moment, I think I see more truth, right? I have more compassion. I can reach there. And present moment, a big tip for me is often drop to your feet, because all of our thoughts are up here in our head. And to bring me to the present moment, if I start to really notice my feet, you probably just did it now, right? You're noticing the bottom of your feet. Mm-hmm. You're noticing if you've got socks on, if you've got shoes on, or the ground underneath. Suddenly you've dropped out of your head down into your body. And then maybe there's a breath. And then maybe there's okay, I just realized this is a big trigger. I need time out. I need to process it separately. I can come back to it. I can deal with it. Not always, right? Like it's not always that option, but there's a space for that perhaps.
I've always heard people talk about when they go to like therapy. I just heard this on an advertisement the other day on Dax Shepard's podcast, and they were talking about that my favorite thing about therapy is if something comes up in my life and I don't really know how to process it or what to do with it, I put it in my bag and I know when I go Wednesday to this office, I'll be able to unpack it there. And I never really thought about therapy like that because my therapy has been yoga and journaling for the longest time. But I often wonder if people do that with their mat too, where like they'll come up on something like in a present moment situation, they don't have time to really address it at the time. They definitely need to get out of whatever, I don't want to say like negative reaction, right, but for lack of a better term, like a negative reaction, they're like, okay, I'm going to put this in the yoga and I'm going to go do it later. Because you really do. I mean, there are times when you can step out and like get your breath in line, 4 breaths in, 6 breaths in, whatever you're into. But you can definitely do that for the heart-brain coherence. That's my go-to, is to just go in the laundry room or the bathroom really quick. And I'm like, just give me a minute. Oh, okay, calm down, like this. And I'm always, I like to identify the emotion too, like, is it anxiety, is it fear, is it worry, is it this? Because they act out this way, but it could be like emotion number 5 wanting to pop out, right?
Yeah.
So for those that definitely wait, I think it's important, or I guess I shouldn't say it is important, but I think it's interesting that the same modality that people use for therapy, they can even do with yoga, whether it's not their thing, because I still think that there's people that think therapy is logically helping them. And my favorite about yoga is it's still going to yoke those hemispheres of your brain, and it's going to actually connect you back to your body. Not saying that like tapping and all of those things aren't, a viable modality. But when you look at yoga, especially me speaking from direct experience, the connection that I've been able to build with my body over time blew my mind and actually showed me how much I had limited myself just based on almost fear of experience, right? Because we go back to, I'd like to do a downward dog. And then you try it for the first time and you're like, well, I'm not a gymnast, so, and you just think I'm not flexible, I'll never be flexible, right? And then the patience you really have to do for the practice. But before you actually started studying yoga, how long have you been doing it? When did you find your love for it to create the business that you have today?
So I actually really didn't like yoga when I started it. I thought, oh my gosh, this is a lot of effort. I was used to going to the gym and working out. And I found it so scary to actually find silence and sit with myself. That I think for many of us is friggin' frightening,
I think that's the
because
number one
then
thing.
It's just me. There's no distraction. Yep. I want to be distracted so I don't have to think or deal with something or see a truth, right? And so in my late 20s, probably early 30s, I started taking yoga classes. And it was, and I couldn't touch my toes. Even feeling pretty fit at that point, it was, didn't have any idea how much tension I was holding in my body, how all my life experiences were just stored somewhere in the internal organs and the bones, muscles.
Were you
it was
used
all
to
there.
going really fast with your workouts though? Like, was it just, not saying it's like high intensity, but were they always intense? So then when you found yoga and they're like, no, you have to slow down and breathe and connect, you're like, how am I going to get a workout if I'm moving slow?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be different to that, but that's definitely part of it would be like, I think for many of us, it's like, oh, okay, so if I hold my arms out here, they're going to be stronger. Mm-hmm. They're going to, I mean, as I've aged, my whole outlook has obviously changed quite a bit, but it was more, I think what kept me going with yoga classes, and especially when I found a really great Kripalu yoga teacher, didn't know about it at the time. I didn't even know anything to do with yoga. All I knew was I felt way better after than I had before class. And that was enough to keep me coming back. And I didn't know why. I thought the chanting was weird, arming was weird. Every time they said, raise your arms, I thought, oh, for God's sake, you know, my arms, that's a lot of work.
We're going to do 2 more
and I was
reps.
Constantly, yeah, it's like, oh, my arms hurt. I don't want to, you know, and again, you know, and ego-driven, noticing everyone around me, lots of inner stories of, oh, you know, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do a one-leg pose, a tree pose or something? Like, why? And I could do it, but I was holding my breath and really concentrating, you know, and then you start to realize, okay, is that really serving me? Because I can do that in real life. I do that already. How about on the mat? I start to be kinder to myself, and my tree is more moving, and I come in and out 100 times. Can that be okay? Mm-hmm. Right? And so it was the journey for me of really compassionate self-acceptance. I started to notice somewhere through the practice a moment of pure right here, right now. And it would be minuscule. And then I'm back to, oh, I got to make the kids' lunches. Oh, you know what? I forgot this. Or, oh, when is this? What's the time? How long have we been doing this? Oh, my God, this must be over by now, you know? And the joy of yoga for me now, and I was even back then, every single time I get on my mat, it is different. Mm-hmm. It is never the same. I could do exactly the same routine of poses if I want. It's me showing up as me in that moment, and it's so different. You know, something that was easy yesterday, today I'm like, oh my gosh, why is my heel not, you know, stretching? Why are my arms don't, whatever, right? So I think that's part of this beauty of continual growth, which we want as humans, right? Like we want to, and then every time we're on the mat, I get to tune in and say, oh, whew, I didn't realize that was such a big deal, and now I can still feel it, right? I didn't realize I haven't let that go at all. I thought I had, but it's still there. And it can come in different waves. And a bigger one for me was we had a really sad death in our family. And when I got back on my mat, quite a long time after that took me out completely. When I was on my mat at one point, we were doing a fish pose, a heart opener. I don't have to know what it is. And this heart opener, and as I went into it, I bawled. Tears started pouring down my face. And for me, I was first incredibly embarrassed. I don't want to, how embarrassing to cry in a yoga class. I mean, it doesn't affect me at all now, but that was my first thought. And I didn't even know where they came from at that particular moment, because this person wasn't in my mind, but my body knew I had to release it. I had the wisdom of my body, which we all have, really helped. And I couldn't stop. And I think, and I was so embarrassed, I actually got up, grabbed my mat and left. I was felt humiliated. All my own ego, all my own, you know, that stuff. And once those tears were open, I think I cried for the whole day, but it was like a body sobbing as opposed to me really like the tears would not stop, right? And when I realized, wow, that is such a powerful release, getting my head out the way, my mind, because if I could have, I would have pulled it together if I had an option, but I had no option. When I had my heart open, I was in a restorative pose, and the body just was like, let's let it go.
I have a comparative story on that as well. So for anybody who just thinks like crying out in public is just, you know, not the best look for you. You feel very vulnerable. Like you said, you feel very embarrassed. But even in yoga studio, if you've never experienced that heart expansion, We were doing restorative poses that day as well. And just like you, my alarm would go off in the morning and I would be like, no, I don't need to go today. And then the other voice in my head was like, no, seriously, you know how you feel after it's done. So just go and do it. You love everybody in the studio. You love your instructor. Like, just go. So I would go and I would continuously go. And I can't really say, I feel like it was a very propped version of fish. You know, like it wasn't the advanced version. It was, these are like, I'm the youngest person in my class. Everybody else is like 50 and up. So it was a very restorative class. You know what I mean? Lots of props. But I remember, like, I felt like I was going to cry, and I was like, I heard this happens to people. Like, I heard this heart expansion happens. But when you have never experienced it for yourself, you're like, oh, like for me, I'm like, how brave of you to be able to release your emotions around people you know, but we're not really like, we're not close like that where it happens. And I would see like people cry in gratitude and bow their heads in namaste and all that. And even when we did namaste, I would realize at the end of all of it, I would get like that ball in my throat, and she would look and she would bow to me, and I would have to whisper it because by the end, like it had come up, but it hadn't come out yet. So one of that like famous class for me, we were in a fish pose variation, and I just remember just like breaking open, and I was just so full of bliss and so full of happiness, but I could observe the pain that was coming out of me. Like it really didn't hurt me at the time. I could just see it coming up. I knew where it was coming, but I was also blown away because it was like my mind had finally given my body permission. Even though I couldn't stop it, just like you, my mind was finally like, the only logical thing to do right now is to get this out of you. And the only way we're able to express it is by you crying a lot. So I was on my mat, everybody saw me, and I was like, I just need a minute. I didn't know this was possible, you know? And then I went back into the bathroom, and I was just sitting there in the bathroom, and I was just like, I was crying happy tears. So I wasn't sad. And it was the first time that I had truly felt gratitude in my body.
Fantastic.
It still brings tears to my eyes, and happiness. And I was like, this is what happiness like actually feels like. I was like, and I had cultivated the happiness. I didn't have to go earn it from somebody. I didn't have to go get validated by somebody. Like, this is all me and all of my breath.
Yeah.
So I literally, like, my voice is shaking just thinking about it because I'm sitting back in that room right now in my head, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, yoga's already done so many things for me in general, but when I was in the middle of like that awakening aspect of yoga, it really just makes you want to go and tell the world, like, you are missing out on something here. You have no idea. You know,
when I first did my training, I almost thought, like, let me go knock on every neighbor's door and say, why are you not doing yoga? It's the best feeling in the world, right? But you know, Cheyenne, for that too, how amazing that you had an instructor, a guide, whatever we call it, teacher, who could hold space for that. So she could lead you there. You chose to go there, but the way she did her poses, the way she held space gave you that safe feeling, which is your podcast, right? But that safe space feeling that allowed some level of your body to know that that was okay to go wherever you had to go for that. It really, you know, that's wonderful.
I'm going to expand on that because my yoga teacher is no longer with us. So anytime I can talk about her, I like to, because she's literally like a guardian angel to me. So when I met Sally, I went into restorative yoga because I had had a surgery where I had lost all of my muscle up here. I literally had to rebuild it from the ground up again.
Wow.
And obviously my ego was like, you can't do headstands anymore. You can't do even a lot of beginner poses right now. No. So I was forced to sit down with the restorative and with the yin and with the breath work and face myself. And like you, obviously, like I want the distractions too because I'm so used to it. So I'm in this room and I'm observing myself that, I'm looking at everybody because I'm so insecure. Am I even breathing right? Did I breathe deep enough? Like you have all of these egoic questions, right?
Yeah.
And this woman was so sweet. And I remember walking into the yoga room and she just goes, honey, do you know what class you're in? And I was like, yeah, it's restorative. And she's like, have you ever done yoga before? And I was like, yeah, I do home practices since about 2013. But I honestly have never been in a studio because I've always been frightened of them. And she's like, okay. She goes, well, I mean, and like she was insecure about it because I was so young that she thought that I was buying into the aesthetic vinyasa hot yoga trend.
Yeah.
So she was even like, this class might not be for you. I just want to be upfront. It might be too slow for you. It might be too this. And I said, can I confide in you about something, about why I'm here? Because I mean, it's a very humbling moment for me to be here. But I said, I lost all of my muscle and I pride myself on like even being able to do a headstand. It makes me happy that I can do that because I never thought I'd be able to do that in my life. But now I can't do it anymore. I said, I literally have to start all the way over in one of my favorite healing practices. And I need to be here. So I said, don't worry that like you're not the teacher for me or your course isn't hard. I said, I don't really like vinyasa the way that it's taught in America. It's missing so much spirit. I'm like, please just allow me to sit down in your class and connect with you. And she was like, okay, honey, I just want to make sure, you know, we're both on the same page. I fell in love with her immediately. The way that she taught, her transparency, her jokes. I begged her as soon as I met her. I said, you have such a peaceful voice. Will you please let me come in and record you doing meditation so we can have audio of you at home? Because even when I was at home, I would listen to her voice in my head. So it was so calming over and over and over. I only got her for less than a year before she actually ended up leaving the studio and moving to the house that her husband and her were retiring at. And she just kept saying, I'm going to do private yoga sessions at my house. You can come up to Kansas City and stay with me. She's like, you're my soul sister. We're here for life.
Oh,
you know?
So lovely.
And
what an experience.
She really encouraged me to like want to be a yoga teacher the way that she was. Not the blonde and the yoga pants, but being there for people that didn't think that they could do it and didn't even understand how unconsciously unconnected they were to their body. Because she led me back to myself in a very, very nice way.
That's wow. What a beautiful story. Yeah. Yeah. And no shade to the blonde in the yoga pants in terms of they're needed too. You know, there are people who they're part of yoga.
It's
I'm just joking, but
the marketing of it
it's just
the best way I could
sort
say.
of resonates with you, right? With the, like for that, it's the connection to the teacher. It's connection to yourself. That's really powerful. That's a real blessing that you got that experience for yoga. Yeah.
Oh, it's still one of my favorite. Like there really are like a lot of life-changing moments with that. And I remember being on the outside of yoga and breath work and kind of peering in and seeing people have experiences and talk about their experiences. And like I was kindly envious because like, again, your logical brain kicks in and it's like, how is that even possible? You know, I wasn't brought up with any of this. So me stepping into any part of this is completely out of my comfort zone, out of my wheelhouse, even like talk about a language barrier. Like Sanskrit is one of like the most ancient language and it's powerful and you want to say it correctly, but you're nervous. You're like, can I say this right? So, I could honestly talk about yoga all day, any day, especially with the spiritually expansive. I'm like losing words.
And it can be as complicated or as simple as you need at that time, right? Sometimes it's placing a hand on your heart, hand on your belly, taking a breath, and you're like.
Those are the ones that still break me. You know, you would think after connecting with your body in such profound ways that you would get more comfortable, but it's almost like, okay, this part's going to make me cry. Okay. Yeah. Oh, this one's going to make me cry. And even in meditation, I'll do that. I'll do breath work after a while and I'll feel the tears come out of my eyes and then I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm crying. And then the other voice comes in and it's like, let it out. It's okay. Yeah. And I always have to tell myself over and over, like, you're safe here, you're safe here, you're safe here, you're safe here. And that's I'm like, I'm safe. Like, I'm a freaking basket case by myself. I have friends that are like,
I
let's
think
do
we all
yoga
release
together.
differently. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I'll get better down the road.
Yeah. And there's an acceptance to, tears are a really wise thing to release and let go of, and I was so concerned about how I looked when I cried. And I didn't look like the pretty people in the movies. I had bright red face and a runny nose and
my
eyes like, whoa, and that's, as I've gotten older,
I used to be a hyperventilator cry too. What, like, when you talk about like what I look like when I cried, or even what I sounded like, or if I start crying, how am I going to calm myself down? That was my biggest thing. But I used to hyperventilate when I was a kid and have to do like the bag almost type technique. Yeah, I mean over anything. So, and if I get a really good crying, that can still randomly come back, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm 5 years old again, and I'm not gonna. So yeah, I mean, vulnerability with crying in a public place. I love that you brought that up, because we're definitely not the only ones that's supremely relatable. But even for me, I mean, just being able to talk about it, let alone show it. It's a really big step for me, but it's still one of my biggest blocks. Like I said, like my throat chakra is literally like, and I couldn't even namaste at the end of the practice. I was like, I am so grateful for this, but I'm a little overwhelmed by my Mentos coming out of my Coke bottle right now. It just keeps going and going.
Yeah, and I think also with, for me, with yoga, with the community aspect, which is part of that yoke that you were describing, sitting in circle. And for me, mostly it was women at that time. There's a lot more men in practices with where I am now. But it was an energy and a sacredness that I had never felt before. And I really felt that in my teacher training. And it was just, I didn't know of supportive women, or I wasn't open to it, maybe for myself, probably. And then to sit in this circle, sometimes, like you say, the overwhelming of the emotion, I had to almost sit, when we'd sit in a circle, I would sit just back, just a little bit, not to be too conspicuous, but because I just couldn't handle the energy of this love and compassion and support. And as women and as mothers, my niche there, it's so important to discover that, but it comes again from, was I open enough for that? Like when my kids were small, I didn't have that. I didn't maybe didn't allow it, wasn't open to it, and then when you discover your group, your people, even if it's just that one yoga class, and you just connect with everybody's energy together. Often we've done a group tree, say, so where you calm and you tree and you're holding hands with everybody. Everybody afterwards is like, the eyes shine a bit brighter. There's a little, and it's uncomfortable and your hands might be sweaty and what if I fall and blah, blah, blah. But it's that experience that maybe helps soften our heart a little bit for the real world, for what we show up as or how we show up or how we judge other people. It's a whole round feeling.
That's an amazing thing to bring up, because again, wow, we have so many similarities. And like I said, I know we're not the only ones, but I remember being around that love and again, observing it and going, wow, this is real. I wonder why I can't be opened up to this, which dives me deeper into my own self-healing journey and my own auditing of, why do I have a broken feminine? Why am I scared to do this? I think one of my biggest things is meeting people like that are so completely open and loving up front when you're not used to that ever. You're used to like ulterior motives or the two-facedness or can I trust you and all of these things. And I've had a mix of really good friendships and one-way street friendships and people that definitely should have exited out of, both of our lives because of that. But I didn't realize the feminine wound that I had been carrying so long, which I think is another reason that I didn't want to go into the yoga studios back then, because I don't look like any of you. I don't sound like any of you. My favorite word is the F word. Like there were so many things that, again, I would be like, I just can't go there. I'm just so tired of being around people that I don't know if I can let in and trust. I like you when I meet you. I'm not like completely perturbed and like, oh, you're not for me. But I realized how skittish and weary I was of other women for so long, especially in that, because I'm just always so aware of like, what's your ulterior motive? Oh, you're just being nice to me to be nice to me. Like there's no earning, there's no energy, like
you're so wise. You're so
here.
wise. Yeah. To notice all that.
Well, thank God for journaling, but sometimes it still makes you go a little crazy because you look around at everybody else that just looks so peaceful in their mind. And you're like,
but we're all good at faking it too,
I'm
right?
not. I always say like, dude, I'm a duck on a pond, and I have those hyper awareness things for me that I definitely try to figure out why those are an innate part of me. But when somebody else tells me like, wow, yeah, when I sat down in that circle and I felt that love, I was like, you kind of feel like Wednesday Addams when someone wants to put the color pink on you. You're like, no, it makes me break out.
Yeah. I spent many, many years avoiding things because I was too embarrassed to cry. I did not want to be vulnerable. I did not want to appear weak. I did not want to appear that I don't have it together. Right? And that's a shedding that, for me,
that's a big one.
It's not always going to be yoga. And a lot of people don't like yoga and they have other paths, and I honor all of that. But for me, it was connecting to my body and my breath and getting older, the wisdom of menopause and all that side of things, that you start to realize, wow, I was actually holding myself back. I was feeling I don't want to make you uncomfortable with my tears, but you know what? I'm uncomfortable with my tears or my anger or, a certain feeling. And as humans, for fuck's sake, we are supposed to have all the feelings. Like that's why we are human. And to, And I think as women, we're very worried about keeping everybody else feeling okay, being okay.
Well, then
are you
not
okay?
showing it and
okay?
then them worrying it, right? Especially if you're that matriarch in the family. My mom, I definitely know it comes from a lot of observing my mom when I was younger. And she, like, no matter what happened to her, she's always fine. She's always fine. She'll get through it. She'll figure it out. She could be in her arm could be cut off. She'd wrap a bandana around it and still make me a lunch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like observing somebody who takes on so much pain like that and then still telling themselves it doesn't matter. I'll figure it out. Yes, it hurts, but I'll push through. I obviously admired that when I was younger because she was so strong and so resilient. And I know that I took that emotional suppression piece, not just from her, but a lot of other family members in my life. Like nobody teaches kids emotional codes. And I was only born in 91, so I can't speak for anybody before that, but 90s, 2000s, parenting type stuff, they're not like, let's teach kids how, like when they're angry, what to do. It's a lot of generation of do as I say, not as I do. Matilda, like I'm the adult, you're the child, like stuff like that. So I know a lot of the stunting in my emotion was the frustration of the why. Why is this happening? Why am I getting disciplined? Why can't I have this? And I would never be told why. And then for, however many years that happens, and just like you're like, oh, all this stuff is stuck in my physical body. Now I'm 32, but the inner child that I was able to connect with on my mat is a conversation I definitely want to start unfolding with you because, one, you work with kids. And secondly, I know that you have your own experience when you first felt you were allowed yourself to feel that bliss and that joy and just that lightness that inner child really brings to us when we start building the awareness, but also healing it and letting it come forward. Just again, like, hey, little shy, you're safe. You're not too much here.
Yeah. It's an unfolding, I think, of self-love. And I wouldn't known that was what I was seeking, right? Self-love, self-worth. I would never have thought that that's what yoga had anything to do with. I help you deal with stress. That's what we sort of put out there. But for me, the whole experience was a real greater acceptance of me and who I am. And that takes a lot of time, right? A lot of time. Like when I think who I am now to when I was 30, you know, like 55 now. And it's an ongoing process. But if we can start that somehow from a place of, like you say, feeling like the words "I am safe," I didn't realize how soul leveling those words to me. If I place my hands over my heart, and as soon as I'm getting a panic on something, if I can come into that space, I am safe. I am safe. I feel things melting away. I feel a sort of a chance to, okay, it doesn't change what's going on. We have no control over that, right? And that's a big lesson, life lesson. For me, came more and more clear to me on my mat and my own life experiences. But I can change. I don't need fixing, right? None of us do. Like, it doesn't have to, you don't have to keep working on being improved, because what if right here everything is okay? And then there's that self-acceptance. Today I feel really lazy. I'm just not going to do anything. I don't want to read anything else to improve myself. I don't want to, you know, and there's days that there'll be a teacher or a sentence or something that you're just like, and you want to follow, like you said before, that train of thought, see where that is. Where does that land with me? And different things relate different days. You could hear the same saying, say, or something, and you're like, I don't even understand that. And then you dig deeper, you know, another time it comes around again, and it comes around again, and then you go, I see what that's about. You know, it's that understanding yourself, and for sure, childhood has to be that's all we know, right? And then that first few years of life and everything, we are really absorbing, never mind just learning on the outside, like to say your 1, 2, 3s and blue, yellow, you know, you're absorbing what's around you. And as a mother, that's big and scary. That's a lot we put on ourselves, because we're not perfect, never going to be. We're never going to respond perfectly all the time in the right way unless we fake it. And so I know a lot of people have chosen to, or are coming at it from a fakeness and not their truth. And if you really pull back on all your emotions and you don't want to feel them, because we're trying to be good mummies and things, that the kid absorbs what you're feeling, not what you're saying. So even if you're like, that's okay, you spilt your juice, and inside you're like, oh God, I just cleaned the floor, blah, 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 right? There can be a softening in how we deal with that, right? And softening of our thought and being like, all right, you know, I'll clean the floor 20 times today with the bar, right? You have that sort of choice, right? But it's that really getting, when you know, if you can install first in yourself, not in your kids. Like I do have people who come to me to do with their children, and it's really, they realize quite quickly that the whole being is like, okay, what is this triggering you? Why is that triggering you? And I'm not a therapist. It's not that. I'm talking about my own journey, I just posing questions, you know, of your truth. Like, why would that make me so mad that a drink was spilled, right? And then I would think to myself, wow, like my whole being, even though I'm saying something nice, my kid, I gave him a dirty look, and I really was like, I could kill you, you know? And I'm going, we just cleaned this up. That's not only going to take you so far. It's uncovering those layers, and you'll be like, oh no, I'm so disappointed with this. Come help, let me clear it up. I mean, it can just be a different way of approaching things that trigger you, you know?
So is that what work before you wrote the book inspired you to really hone in on helping the moms be who they want to be, and then obviously helping the children?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So my background was I was a trained British nanny. That's how I actually went to school, where I went to school from high school in England. It's called a NNEB, trained British nanny. And that was sort of my start. That was what I loved to do, loved to be with kids. And so I then worked with different families around the world a little bit. And I thought at that point, having my own kids could be easy. I've raised so many other people's children. I've all of this stuff. And I was in for such a massive shock because, first of all, I didn't get a full night's sleep like I did when I was nanny. I could go home, sleep, come back. There's no clock off time, right?
Yeah.
And then I had never felt, when I had my son, he's my oldest, I had never felt such overwhelming love for this little person. And at the same time, such intense fear that I could really mess this up. Mm-hmm. I could really mess him up, you know? And I think practically every mum come into parenting wanting to do a good job, you know, wanting to support and help our children. And then it's all out. And so in answer to your question, I don't want to dive off the other side. It was my own experience then of my own awarenesses, nanny training, my own experiences, my own failures and calamity of trying to do it differently with my guys. And then at the same time, at some point, yoga came into the picture. And then I started to be more and more aware that parenting is actually about me and not my kids. And I started to realize the need to lean back and let them have their own life purpose, being their guide, being a support. But again, realizing I never fucking have the control. I'm not going to be able to control them. I would love to. I'd love to control them to be safe. I'd love to control them that they look, they're kind, nice people so that I feel good, right? So it always come back to me. Like, I want you to be polite and nice because then people say, oh, she's a good mother. Right? That felt so important to me.
Yes.
And then in the end, that's not serving my child. They're just being who they are.
It's still really ego-driven, though, right? It's something that all of us are caught up in because, I mean, my husband and I were literally just having this conversation the other day, and then I repeated the conversation with my mom because Monroe is the oldest grandchild on my family side, so everybody worships her. So out of everybody, I feel like I'm the villain in her life because I'm the one that's like, don't jump, don't do that, don't spill this, like down the road. Mm-hmm. And I said, my worst fear is one that she'll resent me because I'm the one that has to go, no, that's not the way we do this. Hey, that's not nice. Let's think about this another way. However I choose to go about it that day. She'll grow to resent me for being, quote unquote, too hard on her while everybody else gets to spoil her and love her. I said, but my other fear is that she is going to grow up and be like a bratty only child who has all of these really annoying things that come out in public that, again, egotistically as the parent, those people are going to look at you and go, what type of parent are you if your child acts like this out in the open? Yeah. And my husband and I talk about this as one of our open fears because she really is an only child. We focus on her so much. We give her space and we don't like spoil and pander and bribe and do all of this stuff. But it's such a relatable parental fear because when you go out in public, you're like, please be good, please be good, please be good, please be good.
Oh, yeah, God, I was so humiliated so many times with mine. And I realized it was all mine. They were just, and I think what if I was coaching you, the switch would be more like, okay, but right now, how is it? She's not in the future, right? Our fears are always the future, but past, right? But when you look right now, here's a little girl who's so loved. I mean, Greg, amazing. Here's a little girl who really feels like she matters. Like, man, we want more of those people coming out in the world, right? And what happens when we stir with a fear, I had them absolutely too, we all do, I still do, mine are adults now, is I start to parent from that fear. Mm-hmm. And that's the danger of danger. That's not going to help us lead forward and change, parent differently, I guess is the thing, right?
I love
and
that
so
you brought
being
that
aware
up.
of that fear is a great reminder that, okay, but right here, right now is a little girl skipping in the grass right here, right now. She gets to be who she is, and she can only do that if we all lean back and get to be who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, preserving that light in her that I see, which again is really great. If you have worked on inner child issues before you have a child and then you have a child, that is some next level inner child work because now,
yes.
like I see so many parts of my younger self before the world got me in my daughter. And I'm like,
yes.
I will do everything to protect this light. I know where mine dimmed in my light, like where I started turning into myself and just being like, no. But for her, she's only 3. She's magnetic. Like if she were here right now, she would pretend like this is her show. Yeah. I was setting up the office the other day and she came and sat down and she goes, I'm Monroe Tyler Moore. And today, Mommy is coming on.
Oh, bless.
And like, I'd never seen her do that before, but since she's either seen me like on the piano doing yoga or this, like she loves doing everything that I'm doing, which is honestly one of the biggest motivations in the world. If you don't want to do it for yourself, you can do it for your kids that day because they're freaking watching. I will pick her up from daycare and she's like, Mommy, can we do yoga today? And maybe it was the day where I was like, we're not going to do, like, we're just going to go home and just chill out. And I'm like, yeah, we'll do yoga today. Yeah, we'll do that. It's fine. Yeah. You're right. You're keeping me in check. But protecting that light is powerful. They're our biggest
teachers, right? If we can get out our own way, you know.
But parenting from fear, that is, I mean, that's going on a Facebook post for sure. Because I recognize when I do it, and then like for a split second, maybe up to 5 if I'm being honest, I'm like, I am so ashamed that I have this awareness and I still have not figured out how to break this. So I'm like, where is it coming from? Why is it still stuck in me? Why do I have the awareness? What is not integrating properly? This is not how I want to parent. And I know my child's 3, but I have had moments where I just, like you, like it's just like the cup spills. And I'm like, I don't want to clean this up for the 20th time today. Like, what is wrong? You know, and I kind of go a little freaky. And then I come back and I go, you know, Monroe, that's not the mom that I want to be for you. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm actually going to mess up a lot because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying. No. Just like you don't know what you're doing, I don't know what I'm doing. We're both trying to get through it together.
We're gonna figure it out.
But I just wanted to apologize to you because that's not the mom that I want to be, and I never want to make you feel that way. So I am so sorry. Because we had a moment last night right before bed. She kept getting out of bed. She got out of bed 6 times for the most random stuff that, you know, kids do to get out of bedtime.
Sure. Yeah, oh God.
And finally I got stern with her. And I was like, we are done with this. We are going to bed. There are no more excuses. We've had water, diaper. We've done everything. Yeah. You know, the checklist is done. The only thing that's not done is you closing your eyes and getting into bed. And you and you're like, I'm done mummying. I'm finished for the day, right? Yeah, and you need sleep. You know, I'm like, you need to go off to a very beautiful astral dream. Go get some information from your higher self, whatever you want to do. Just please go to sleep. And I can always tell when she's mad at me because I say I love you and she doesn't say anything back. So then I'm getting her to walk.
That's her little control.
Yeah, that she's like, So I'm like closing. I was like, I love you, the moon and back, and like dead silence. So I open the door and I look at her and she looks at me like she's 13. And she's just like, and I said, I'm sorry. I don't want to talk to you sternly, but I still don't understand why you can't do it when I'm being nice and open and free and hey, this is how it is. Here's my Mary Poppins
And she's like, I don't know either.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm 3, I don't know. Which I know the whole big push to meet your kids at their emotional development. But again, I'm not going to pander you. We're still going to have a standard of living and an action has a consequence. But the discipline is going to have an explanation. You will always know why. That is my promise to you. I will always give you the why. Your issue is you got to be okay with the why. And that's where we're not at. Like, she is like, no, I want it, and if I don't get it, I'm just going to have a fit. And I'm like, I'm going to sit here and observe this fit with you. And the most annoying thing that she thinks that I do, even though she can't verbalize it yet, is when I start telling her to breathe. Hey, think happy thoughts, we're just going to breathe. She's like, no, Mama, I don't want to breathe right now. Like, she just really 3-year-old rights being in her anger.
Absolutely. Oh, my gosh. My kids are fed up with me saying, okay, let's just take a big breath. And they're like, whoa. And I'm like, well, you're breathing anyway. Let me just help you here. Yes. But and again, it's witnessing, right? Like, I love that she says, I don't want to breathe. I mean, how beautiful at 3, you know, like, I know I'm not, because she's still in her motion. She's still in that right now.
Yeah, and she's building that language. And I know that me and so many other people in my generation and plenty before, they did not get any type of definition for emotional code. It's you you act right, and if you act wrong, you have this consequence. Bad feelings are bad. We don't express them, which thank goodness for the mental awareness push. But I'm like, I'm a full spectrum emotional person. And yes, I have days where I'm like, ooh, my energy's a little off. Like, I'm really not going to go around people just because I really do have that like happy, loving golden retriever personality where I go out and I want to be a part of the happiness and the magic, like that group of people you talked about. And if I'm not that person, people are worried about me immediately because that's the only one that they know. And they're like, are you okay? And I said, just because I don't feel like talking and I just feel like observing today, like I promise you I'm okay, but I want to kind of sit back and not say anything, but I don't react. Again, duck on a pond. I'm just like, and it worries people because they're used to me being like, da, 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 da.
Yeah. And you get to be all of it, right?
Yeah, I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's okay to speak sternly to our kids. It's okay to, lose it, and it's that can be an apology. And sometimes it's like, no, this is how I feel. Like that's the way they feel. I think the biggest fear for me was always that I didn't want them to carry the guilt of I've upset mummy, and then who is that really about? I'm assuming they're going to feel the guilt they've upset mummy.
Well, that's a great thing that you bring that up.
Not them.
Because again, when I was growing up, like your parents didn't tell you, your parents aren't going to be like, you're annoying me right now, go away. You're too much right now, go away. Mommy's overstimulated, mommy needs a minute to breathe. It was never really about that transparency in emotion between child and parent relationship that I had.
They didn't know. Yeah.
No matter what, my mom would be like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. But the emotions that I'm getting from her is she is not fine at all. Yeah. So not only are you confusing them on both of those levels, but your kids aren't going to know how to trust their intuition because their intuition is telling them, hey, your mom's not okay, overstimulated, whatever it is. But then your mom's going, oh no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, everything's fine. You're like, okay, but my gut's telling me that you're not. So, you're my mom.
And
I better
kids
trust
naturally
you.
assume it's their fault.
Yes.
Like, no matter what, right? We bring it on as that it's something I did wrong. And I was so scared that my kids would feel that I probably went the other way almost, like over, like, oh, it's not you, or it's not this, or I can't cope, and all this. And I think some of it, it's like, not everything has to be said too, because it is, we're empathetic, right? And if I can say, I love the idea, I'm overstimulated right now, I don't know how to respond to this, I'm just going to sit for a minute and do breath work where I count my fingers or whatever, right? Like whatever breath work it is. And that's the telling that you're okay with this feeling. I'm going to be over here a minute. And then we can come back and address it, and then we can come back and talk, and then we could say 100 times, oh, it's not you, but everything in their being is going to feel that because our energy came. I have a big, great temper. My roar would be so scary. And when I saw that in the eyes of my kids, that was also then going, whoa, what are you doing? That's not how I want to parent. And to be able to say, and sometimes I've had to go back leave and come back and say, okay, I'm really sorry. I just want to clear, let's do a do-over. And a big part of my parenting, the changes that you were asking before, was really to realize how wise they are and to ask them, how can I do this better? Or what is it you need? Or, like your daughter's not going to sleep. What is it you need? And it's always amazing to me, because I definitely didn't grow up with those kind of questions, but it was amazing to me how they would say something and I think, God, genius. Wow, wouldn't have thought of that, because I'm coming from my own stuff, and it would be something really simple, like I really don't I don't want the door closed, I feel scared. Boom, I can relate to that. I can see you as a person. I can, maybe the door has to be closed and that's how we're going to do it. I'm not saying that's wrong, but it's just like to sort of be like, okay.
Well, it's almost
I know for many people, bedtime is hell, getting kids out the door in the morning is hell, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bring them in. Ask them, how can I help you? I don't want mornings to be like this. And it's not like you're always late, you're always, blah, blah, but like like you would with friends, with a spouse, hopefully, you'd have a communication and at their level. And I think that can really change things. that it doesn't all become us having to solve stuff. And I think that's the key of this parent from this place is I got to get to my place so that I can be open to parents, right? And when we're in strong emotions, it's so hard to get out of here, right?
Well, it really does just like cut off critical thinking if you get to a point. And I think it's really important to recognize that in yourself, because even though like your physical body is in whatever emotional reaction it's having, your mind is not there in that moment. You really do have to pull yourself away from it. And that's another thing that I do. I spend so much time auditing a lot of frustrating moments that I have with her in parenting that I'm like, I cannot think properly right now. And I actually know if I continue forward, I'm not going to handle this properly. So I am just going to take a break. Like, cool, let's go see if the laundry needs flipped over this. Or, yeah, like I have corners in my house with affirmations and just anything to really like bring me back on track. I call it my Mary Poppins bag where I pull in my bag of tricks. But back to like asking them what's going on. I've had moments like that. But I would like to tell you last night when I asked my daughter why she can go to bed, it's because she wanted ice cream.
Yeah, and you go, oh, I get that. Would say it's really lovely.
I explained to her why we can't have ice cream. So then she said, can I have a jelly bean? And a jelly bean, she only gets one for like potty training. Because we're in the thick of get out of this, pull up immediately. So she's the only time she's ever had a jelly bean in her life.
So funny.
Is just
she's
for
just
potty training.
I love it though. She's playing. She goes, "What would Mum give in to?" Because I know she's a bit tired and frustrated.
But this is how I know that she's like a genius. So the other night, we had to put a chime on her door because she would start waking up in the middle of the night and just acting like it's Home Alone in the house. So we had finally thought, we're like, okay, we have the chime on the door, so no matter what, when she's awake, we're aware. One of us hops out of bed and goes, what do you need? Are you coming to our bed? Are you going back to yours? Whatever. Yeah. Well, the other night, my husband and I were just dog-ass tired and apparently didn't hear the chime go off at 2 a.m. So for an hour, she pulled her table from the living room into the kitchen and any high stool. She pulled ice cream out of the freezer, milk out of the fridge, honey out of the cabinet, and crawled on the top of the fridge and got all of her jelly beans. Then she took all of these ingredients and put them on my record player. If you want to talk about controlling your emotions. Yeah. And she was making honey jelly bean ice cream milk concoctions on my record player by 3 a.m. My husband jumps up immediately because he hears her voice. And I was terrified to go outside in the living room because when we had waken up prior to this, we knew that it was some evil genius stuff going on. And he walked out and I heard his voice go up, and it takes a lot to get my husband to do anything but speak like a gentleman. And I was like, oh, this has got to be bad. And I'm like my studio's out here too, right? So I'm like, did she, is my laptop gone? Is my Rodecaster like, oh God, did she break my crystal? And I'm just, I'd never think in a million years she was going to make milkshakes on my record player. No. So he just came in the bedroom and he's like, babe, I'm so sorry. He's like, it's bad. And I go, is Monroe okay? He goes, oh, she's fine. She's back in bed. He goes, but she was making weird concoctions on our record player. And I go, the jelly beans are high, right? Like she had to step on a stool like Tom Cruise in Top Gun type stuff. So we had to sit her down and explain safety because that's the only way I know how to explain it to her. I was like, we do these practices for safety. This is why we do this. It keeps you safe. It keeps you safe. It keeps you safe. And then I
look forward to seeing her as a teen.
You and me both. I'm like, I'm going to have to get like triple insurance for this kid. She's going to be jumping out of airplanes as soon as she's 18. So, that's one of those parenting moments where you feel completely justified to lose your shit. And again, like my books, my records, my crystals, and my studio. 4 things that are off limits. You can touch anything else in the house. I'll give you any outfit in my closet, whatever. You touch these things, and I'm going to turn into a dragon. And that's just from a protective standpoint. It's good for her to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she's a daredevil, and she definitely triggers me. but I like it because, think your triggers for they show you where you're not
There's
healed.
a part of you like going, whoa, the audacity. I can't believe she felt that one moment did she think, oh, I might be found out or I might be caught. No, she was having a great time.
Oh, well, her favorite thing, so the first time we caught her, she was in an Elsa dress and she had grabbed a bunch of chocolate that we had put far up. It's before we knew she could climb on the counters like that.
Yeah.
I came in, she was covered in chocolate down her face, all down her Elsa dress. And she looked at me and she just goes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, she knows. That's the thing that gets me. I was like,
she felt the energy of mama coming in the room.
This is you. And I just kept repeating like I was frozen. I was like, you know better. Like I'm a robot that's about to just short out. I'm like, you know better, and you still chose to do different.
That's funny. Yeah.
Thank
goodness for humor, right? Thank goodness.
Oh, my sarcasm has got me through a lot in parenting, I will say. I don't want to give you like all of the details of your book away because I definitely want people to be interested and if they want that guidance from you. But can you just dive into the book, like the description of the book, and then what is in there to help parents move along in their yogi parenting journey?
Wonderful. Yes. It is very much my own story and awakening to those pieces. Right? Yoga, parenting, all of that. And my trained nanny, what I thought parenting should be like to what it actually was like. And a lot of unraveling of who I am is in there. But the pieces that are, I think, one is the feedback is a lot of parents just love the permission and relate to, it's not, just because I'm a parent coach, it's not perfect. I've never been striving for my kids to be perfect, and then so it's the ups and downs of that awareness. It talks about my yoga teacher training and how that experience was. But what is really lovely in there's I think it's 8 chapters and there's 8 pockets of pauses, and in those pocket of pauses in between each chapter, it's that little bit of yoga that there's a breath work, a mantra, something to say, and one pose as a way of being a pause in your parenting throughout the day, throughout your life. It obviously can relate to anything, but it's a way of really giving you a little bit of an experience, because as busy mamas, getting on your mat and doing an hour class is often completely unattainable, and it's the idea that the finding yoga off your mat, that maybe just being fully present in a pose, whatever, it could be child's pose, it could be lying down, being fully present in that with your mantra, with your breath, is maybe all it takes to make a little switch in your energy, in your attitude, in your feeling, So that I'm really proud of those pieces in there. There is a section on yamas and niyamas, which we've talked about, moral codes that are set in the 8 limbs of yoga. And I really related to most of them, some not so. Maybe now going back, I might feel differently, but in how they, it's kind of a bit similar to 10 Commandments, but to me, it's a different setup in that it could be that there's one aparigraha. And so this meaning non-attachment. And then I realized how attached I am to my role as a mum, right? How attached I was to role to being a good mum, to being a good person, to being nice, to being liked, and it's how attached I was to my kids because I was so meshed with them, in everything about them. And I had to realize, who is that supporting and helping? It's actually totally not helping them, and it's totally not helping me. There is a separation. This is a person. I am a person. Fully loved, all of that. We're not denying any of that, but enmeshed in every emotion they have, every feeling they have, everything they're going through. I want to jump in and make it better, make it pretty, make it nice. I don't want them to feel that way, right? And so the yamas and niyamas had different ways for me to see the truth again in who I am. And in my teacher training, this is why the yoga, the deep philosophy, I think is so beautiful. And and to me, I'm not a scholar, yoga scholar. I really did take out the pieces that related to me. And in my yoga training, we had to live each one of those for a week, I think, and journal about it. Maybe it was something like that. So there's 8, I believe, in my head. And each one you would live a week. And I was amazed at the transformation and the journey of me knowing myself better, me being more aware of, ahimsa, non-harming. And I'm thinking, I'm a good person. I don't harm anybody. Whoa, how negative and evil is that inner voice in my head? Like that awareness of like, oh, really? You don't harm others. You're believing you don't. Like I pick up a bug on the streets and put it to the side, a caterpillar. Oh, I'm so nice. And then you're like, not so nice to yourself, perhaps. And then get me behind a wheel in a car. I am really quite nasty to everybody around me, feeling in my safe car that I can be feeling, and then I look in the mirror, a little mirror, and there's my 2 kids with their eyes looking at me, right? Like it was that kind of switch around. So in the book, there's little pieces on each one of those if people want to kind of juggle a little bit with or find out a bit more. Always on a very top level, right? I haven't studied this forever. This is really just sharing my experience. And I really strongly, strongly believe that it's the parenting, that changing the parenting, really fully supporting mothers, big time, the world, that's what's going to change our world for the better, and mothers have carried this for years and years all alone, and trying to do it alone. And we can only do what we know. We don't know how to do what we don't know, right? That's why, where is there support? Is there a book? Is there a coach? Is there a person, a mentor? And it doesn't have to necessarily be within yoga. Of course it doesn't. But in just discovering, okay. Like what relationship do I want with my kids in the future? That was a big one for me too. Like what do I want? Do I want that knowing when I phone them, they're like, oh God, it's my mom.
Yeah.
That terrifies me. I don't want that. And if I don't want that, I can't force that. I have to start with respect now. I have to start with conversation now. I have to start with, a bit of balance, a bit of awareness, So it's a kind of that whole journey is in the book that is available on Amazon right now. And if you are closer to me in Canada, I can also mail you a copy. I have some myself.
Wonderful. And you also, when I was looking over your website this morning, I saw the Work With Me tab. You can do one-on-ones like over Zoom and video, and then you can also do in person. But you have retreats and workshops as well that you set up and host?
Yeah. So I have, one-on-one is the main one. I have these SOS calls, Save Our Sanity. And, somebody would reach out. Yeah, because it's really like, for many of us, we just need I just need help on this. I can't get them to stop fighting. I'm feeling overwhelmed I don't even like being with my kids. I've had people from all different scales of it. And so that's a lot of my work that I really love, that we sit together and we work through it. And then I am very intuitive and tune in and empathetic. And I then come up with an inspired action plan. So you get sort of a way of how do I actually move forward? Because it's fair enough to figure out why and how, but then what the heck do I do? What is available to me? So I do that. And then I have for many years, right before the lovely COVID, I was teaching yoga retreats in Switzerland for women. My mum is over there. And then I just started this year now in Toronto, in Canada. They're not in Toronto, to host retreats. And I have a Mama's Day off, those type of things, where you can come and we do a whole day of yoga-ish stuff, yoga philosophy, journaling, being together, that kind of thing.
I love that. I want to come.
That
sounds
you're
amazing. I am so down for anything with yoga and journaling, and honestly, just anything that has to do with traveling. I have wanderlust fever like crazy. I absolutely love going out and exploring like that, but to be able to go and have a safe environment to be around women that are vulnerable enough to be like, hey, I'm not perfect. This is what I'm working on. This is what I came here for. And then realize, yes, they might get help with what they're working on, but they're actually going to get a lot a lot more out of it than even what they realize. Because again,
Yeah,
your logical
always.
brain
Yeah.
tries to think it forward, like, oh, you're going to go this weekend, you're going to do X, Y, Z, and then you're going to come home and business as usual. And then people end up coming home afterwards and they're like, I just had a transformational moment. I need
Yeah.
to reevaluate these things in my life. Oh, thank God I had this retreat. I just feel like I hit another level.
Yeah.
I absolutely love those feelings. And as you're describing it, I'm like, ooh, I need a retreat like that. That sounds wonderful.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah.
I feel like I want to ask you some off the wall rapid fire questions. I've never
Go for
done
it.
this before,
Oh.
but I am always so curious what people are going to ask. I used to ask these to people when I was interviewing them for jobs, just so I could see what their thing was. So, not many of them, but my favorite one to ask is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Any superpower, I think. Oh, I'm so nosy. I would like to be invisible sometime. To have the
I'm
power of
so
being invisible.
nosy.
So nosy.
That's
I would like to
funny.
go, is that the truth of what they said? Or, oh, I'd like to be a fly on a wall over here. Yes, that's the evil side of me. Yeah, I'd like
That's
to
funny.
have a little, yeah. You didn't expect that, huh?
No. Well, and that's why I asked, because I was like, I wonder what, if she could pick a superpower, what it would be.
Yeah, I don't know where that, I just thought that, going, yes, I really, sometimes like really nosy,
You'd
but
love
I'd
to
like
be
to know.
invisible. That is so funny. Okay, if you could
I'm as
travel,
nosy as knowing what the neighbor next door was eating for dinner. Like I would like those kind of, that information just to know.
just to know, why are you eating that today? I think the more you investigate yourself, though, you get more curious about humanity and the inner workings of
Yeah,
each individual person.
absolutely.
Because whether we're getting along or not, we're all still living on the same planet. So we're like, what
We're all
makes
giving it
you
our best
tick?
shot. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying, and some days we're not trying, but we're still here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, all expenses paid, no restrictions, where would you go?
Ooh, Thailand. I'd like to go to
Ooh,
Thailand.
that's a good one. And do you have a favorite author currently, or like an all-over favorite author that you admire?
Oh my gosh, how am I going to narrow that down? Yes, yes, yes.
Tough question.
Yeah, because I just read two amazing books, and I do love fiction. I love murder mystery stuff. I also love the knowledge ones.
You can give me a couple if you want, because anytime anybody asks me this question, I'm like, I can't give you one, I can give you a handful.
Yeah, that's how it's feeling. I'm like thinking around going, okay, what have I recently read that I was like, Isabella Allende. I've been reading a few of hers. Love. And I just heard her in an interview on a podcast with Julia Dreyfus, the one from Seinfeld. She's doing a
I
podcast,
love her.
Women Wiser Than Me. Oh, it's beautiful because it's my people who are older than me who, anyway, so Isabella Allende on there was amazing. I love Glendon Doyle. I really like her. She has, what's the one? She's the one whose famous quote is, I can do hard things. Anyway, her book is, I've read two of hers. Amazing.
Yeah, that's a reminder now. As soon as you said I can do hard things, I'm like, that's who that is.
Yeah, Glennon Doyle. And I still often refer back in poetry-wise with Maya Angelou. Her words, yes. I love what she has out. Those would be, yeah, there you go, top three. I love Brene Brown, but I find her books hard going, but I love listening to her or seeing her. Brene Brown. Love her. But in book form, I often think, my God, this is like way too much. I need it much more simplified.
Yes. I have books like that too. And I'm like, can I just not get it right now? Do I need to put it back on the shelf and bring it out at a later date? This is heavy. That actually reminds me of a book. Which one is it? It's over here somewhere. I tried to stack them. Oh, it's It's a book about the mind, and it's written literally like, a published page that really only scientists should read. But I was just so fascinated by the book and the cover and diving into the mind. I have opened it 5 times in the last 10 years, and I just go, maybe in my 40s, I'll be able to sit down. Like I have a Post-it for my 40s, and if I'm like, well, if I can't fit in my 30s, we'll start this at age 40, and we'll start checking these things off. I've opened that damn thing 5 times, and I'm like, not yet, still? All right, I'll try later.
Oh, you're fantastic. That's so funny.
I really appreciate that. And I love you coming on the show today. Before we get out of here, I do want people to know where to find you. Are they able to go and find you on Facebook? Would you prefer them to go to your website? I'll have everything linked down below for multiple choice options, but just for you, if people want to buy your book, all of that.
Yeah, Instagram is my main hangout. I have I show up there regularly. Less on Facebook, and my website is always in need of a new update. I'm in a new way right now, so I show up a little differently again. So Instagram, Yogi Parenting Coach, Anja Simmons. You'll have the link you said, and so that's the best place to find me, and you can book calls with me off there and all of that.
I love that. And you can they can book yoga classes with you as well?
Yeah.
I love it. I love your work. I'm so thankful that you wrote a book on parenting. You have put the yogi and the parenting together.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Excellent.
I don't even know what more to say.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Really thank you for coming on. And I wish you all the success on your book and everything that you're doing. I think it's great. And if you ever want to come back and teach and do whatever you want, you're more than welcome to come back and tell us like what next is, or whatever you'd like.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you. But before we get out of here, you'll have to wait and hear the music that I choose when we make it live on Spotify. No offense. But for everybody that's still listening, thanks for hanging out. I really hope you enjoyed. Drop your comments below or on our social media. Please get a hold of Anja for all of your yogi parenting coach needs. And right now, on our way out, Vitality Exposed is going to bring us a track from Neovaii called Ride off his album Dawn. Thank you again.
Thank you.
This is the Hoosier Media Network, your home for podcasting.